is when Charles de Thierry and also Jean Lafayette are the ones who actually make the introduction of the French King Louis Philippe to the Taiopuru. And so the Taiopuru is then protects the Louis Philippe. And whenever he's sailing on those Ko Huiarau ships, they would fly the French flag. And obviously that becomes the red rag to the bull, and that's why those two ships were confiscated. I've actually seen, like, those ships were returned a couple of years later. Like, what happens is 1831, a petition is sent by 13 chiefs from out of Ngāpuhi, asking King William if he will be a friend and a guardian to them, and asking for a flag that will be recognised. And so there's a delegation that goes to England in 1832, led by Paratini Te Manu. And, and that's where King William actually gifts the flag, which is the kara tuatahi, and the 4 ensigns that go with that flag. So the 8-point star, or 8-point flag, is the Taiopuru and Ko Huiarau itself. The 7-point flag was the Whakaputanga and Ko Huiarau. The 6-point was the army and the navies of the Ko Huiarau, which eventually became the bodyguards of the Taiopuru, the 6-point. And then the 5-point was all the hapus of Ko Huiarau. And that's the whole of Aotearoa. So that parliament there is what set up what became He Whakaputanga and Te Tiriti. Things get a little blurry in 1835, and by blurry I mean there's a deliberate move made by the British settlers to try and because what happens in 1832 is not only are they gifted that flag, but Louis Philippe, the French king, actually ends up giving us the Gat seals and the rights of man. He gives that because through doing whakapapa, he learns that we are the line of Joseph. The French kings have the Gat seals by virtue of that they are the line of Judah, supposedly coming down through a Jesus whakapapa. So we're given that in 1832. Now in 1832, America actually comes under those Gat seals as well, by James Clendon becoming the first consulate and a friend to the Taiopuru. So these are international tongas that have been given to us through whakapapa. Now, you have a lot of people when they talk about here Whakaputanga. The Whakaputanga, what's actually happened is it's actually been set up to try and undermine the sovereignty that was given to Ko Huiarau and the Whakameninga of Aotearoa. And that's when they've gone and set up the Whakameninga of New Tyranny. And it's done deliberately. They've gone and deliberately used the word New Tyranny. So, because what happens, it then allows them to go back into Cook's doctrine of first discovery when he got here in 1769, and he claimed New Zealand on behalf of England. And so the chiefs don't realise they don't know that in 1835, and they don't realise also that by declaring themselves as a declaration of independence, that they are unwittingly setting themselves up as a republic, actually going against Ko Huiarau and the Whakameninga of Aotearoa. And so what it looks like that there's British here that are actually under the Rothschild influence to break the sovereign, the monarchy ties, the blood ties of the Gat seals. And it looks like their hair as a Rothschild thing to purposely set up the republics. And that's where it gets all murky on that side of things. Now when they go and set up here Whakaputanga 1835, 28th of October, what they've gone and done is they've gone and deliberately set up an Admiralty law trap 2 months earlier by putting out a gazette notice where they say that the chiefs had adopted the same flag that had been already gifted 3 years earlier, you know. So that was part of their laying the Admiralty trap, because what that does, it in the adoption thing, it not only does it put it under Magna Carta, but it also put it under what's known as the Holy Alliance Treaty of 1213, where the whole world was put into a global trust of the Vatican. So all of this is still relevant today, you know. And so what happens in that Admiralty law trap, and because it's the Whakamininga o New Tyranny that goes on to that document, when they go to do Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the chiefs actually make a mistake at that time, because one chief is warning them, don't sign the Treaty of Waitangi on the Union Jack, but sign it on your own cloak. And so Aparama Taunui, the chief who warned them, he actually put his cloak on the table, and then his cousin threw it off and they signed on the treaty. So that's actually what's brought through the Pākehā Treaty. And then what that does by making it the Pākehā Treaty, it then makes this New Zealand. And so here's all these people signing on behalf of their hapus without realising that that at Waitangi, they've actually walked into the Admiralty law trap of going under flag etiquette because they signed on their flag. And so anything after that becomes British subject, pretty much. But having said that, even though they had that and they're using that in the Admiralty law trap, the evidence that comes later, and I'm mostly in the Muri Whenua times, is the Mandate Treaty that was signed in that time that had the royal seals of Waikato Tairi on it, Queen Victoria and William Hobson. So it's not till that's produced many, many years later that it then goes, it's able to take it back into that 1832 kaupapa of us being a sovereign nation, but also the guardians of the GATT seal countries. And there's probably nearly 80 of those countries. All through that, like the government, they're still using the Admiralty law trap of not recognising Ko Huiarau or the Whakamininga of Aotearoa. And it's not until they go to set up the Kotahitanga Parliament, and I think it's 1889 sometime, that the mana of the sovereignty thing then is able to come back. And so it's that Kotahitanga Parliament when they go, and this is, when they go to set up the League of Nations in 1820 after World War I, there's a seat that's given into the League of Nations for us because we have the GATT seals and the rights of man, and that seat still exists in what became the United Nations in 1947. So this is all international law stuff that we still hold today, and it's when the claims like the Muri Whenua and Muri Whenua Ngāpuhi claims were started in 1986. It was those tongas I'm talking about, the international tongas, GATT seals, Herbalist Charter, the Free Carriage of Westminster. These are the tongas that are used by Muri Whenua with the support of Ko Huiarau and the Whakamininga of Aotearoa that go on to win every single claim on behalf of Hapu. And not only did it prove the Crown owned nothing on land or sea, but it also allowed us, using those same tongas, to reinstate the upper and lower houses of Ko Huiarau in 1997 and 2000.
Okay, Edwin, we just
Yep.
have Bob here. He wants to ask a question.
Yep.
We've got about 5 minutes left because these Zooms only run for 45 minutes and then they shut down.
Okay.
So
That's all
we carry on the rest of this kaupapa on the next Zoom and run through some questions from
Yeah, no,
people
that's
that
fine.
popped up.
Yep.
I
Good,
thought
thank
it
you,
was
Edwin.
updated, Ngawai. I saw that whoever runs the Zoom updated it, so it's got it can
It'll keep going.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob.
Well, that's
Hey.
awesome.
Yeah.
G'day, Edward. Nice to see you, man.
You too, brother.
I love your Mihi. It's just, you know, I so much information, but you know, and I'm just blown away with. I love the experts in the areas because they're passionate about what they're learning and they've done the depth. And listening to you there, of course, at the moment there's a lot about the whole who owns the land.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got one Māori faction here going, well, it goes back to this, and we can prove, and we have this, and we have that, and this is where it comes from. So Ngāpuhi and all of land, and then of course there you got the Whakaputanga, and that is where it stands, and that's the power. And the other one's telling me where I seem to be getting it from you, Edward, whereas actually no, that was still a trap there as well. So even the 1835 choice. With the flag there, is still under flag etiquette, so it was still part of the Admiralty trap.
Yes.
So I still keep coming back to, and from a spiritual side of things, it's well, no one can own the land, avoid the air, etc. But then, of course, we're always going to come down to who do we have to get permission from, and if we need permission, then somebody is the guardian or caretaker or owner of the land. And then for me, it becomes just a slight issue with so. From where we're coming from at the moment, it would just a little update of my vision, I suppose. But I'm worried for my vision because no matter which way we go, we're going to upset somebody. We're going to tread on somebody's toes. And as much as I've said out there to folks in my trainings, you need to do your research. You need to contact Harper. You need to contact the local marae. You need to do all of this background stuff before you think about doing anything on land, anywhere in the country. And it's not because I'm saying that yes, they own it. It's I'm saying you don't want to start wars. Yep. You need to do your due diligence. So are we looking at, so before Whakaputanga, so going back to 1832, so this is where the real standing is going to there.
Yeah.
And so Whakaputanga and 1835 flag choice onwards is still an Admiralty trap.
Yes, it is. What's happened, because like I said, you had that Rothschild influence there of them setting up a republic, which were then, you know, made the moves to actually bring it under America. Because like if you've learned the thing where, you know, America then, it's in 1871, when it becomes that corporation, and the moves had already been made with the Rothschilds from America, 1776. The next step that they did was to take out France, who had the GATT seals. You know, that's the French Revolution. I think we were next in the 1835 thing, and then South Africa is the Boer War, etc. So all they've done is they've gone and identified all the most wealthiest nations of GATT, and then they've gone in there and the Rothschilds have, you know, funded the revolutions to the point where the United Nations now is made up of all of those republics, and probably the only monarchy left on the table is probably England that I can see of that
Monarchy,
permanent council as a monarchy. Yeah. In the
and that's about screwed now anyway.
Yeah, Te Treaty itself was done purposely to bring back the blood tie recognitions, and when you look at it, how it properly, the Te Treaty o Waitangi was actually bringing together of Judah and Joseph, because we were given the GATT seals because of their Joseph whakapapa, and that's how it should be looked at properly. So it's bringing that British Commonwealth and the GATT seals back together. That's what it should have been, and that's why Ngāti Wiki Tory officially only exists from 1840, even though they've got what it actually looks like King William has been used to help to set up that republic as well,
Yeah.
you know? So maybe
I've
he
heard
was
that.
on the Rothschild side of things, I'm not too sure. But he had already gifted that flag already, so that shouldn't have been the problem.